And welcome to the OCR Lounge. Once again, we're back with another episode brought to you by Brown Bottling Group. Go grab a Pepsi or a Mountain Dew today, one you like of your choice. So thank you to Brown Bottling for being our title sponsor. Today we have a special treat for you. Another MRA alum, a 2019 graduate, his 2018 playing season. We're going to get into that. He's got a lot to do with power cleans and hang cleans, a lot of strength and conditioning. Former Mississippi State Bulldogs, who are all you Mississippi State fans, you're going to enjoy this one. This is going to be Cody Swanson joining us in the lounge today. Well, hey, Cody, and welcome to the lounge. Just glad to have you back from Yukon.
Yeah, it's good to be
way
back.
Up north. The weather's a little warmer.
Just a lot warmer, actually.
Yeah, and look at the weather forecast. I think the week after New Year's, it's going to be colder in Mississippi than it is in Connecticut.
Possible. I haven't really looked after New Year's. I just know that since I've been there, it's gotten way colder. It's gotten down to the single digits multiple times. It's snowed multiple times already. The light dusting for them is 6 inches of snow, and it's mind-boggling. Oh yeah, that's more than I've ever seen in my life down here. The world shuts down if it's more than 1.5 inches here in Mississippi.
Yeah, if it's a quarter of an inch, just yeah. If there's a threat of it, we're going to shut down schools for 3 days because of the chance of snow. And you're talking about y'all have single digits. And
oh, yeah. It's pretty insane.
I did see Maine is going to be negative 45 in a week and a half. I can't even fathom that.
I can't either. It hasn't gotten down to the negatives yet, but they've told me it's going to get there.
So how do you prepare for that? Stay inside?
I just stay inside. Yeah, the heat's always running in the house now, so the heaters are different. So it's what y'all are used to. We all have the vents on the roof because cold air falls, right?
Right.
Their heaters aren't like vents. It's like a pipe that just gets hot and the whole room just warms up because of it.
Oh wow.
I don't really know how. It just runs along one wall on one side of the house, and then everything just warms up. I've never seen it before. But apparently every house has it up north.
Well, they got to be doing it right because if you're talking single digits, I don't want any part of that.
Oh, no. It bites. It hurts.
Think about playing in that. We'll get into your football playing journey, but imagine 2000, there was the Snow Bowl at Mississippi State.
Yeah, that was A&M, right?
Yeah, in Shreveport. Yeah. What about if you played in single digits?
See, the thing is I don't deal well with the cold. My hands, dude, get so cold. Dude, I feel like my hands would break every time I tackle somebody.
Yeah, I'm like you. I don't like the cold weather very much. So a lot of my buddies, John Torrey, who lives in Nebraska, he called me. He's like, so you don't like cold weather at all? I was like, no, bro. It's going to be colder here than it is in Canada.
Oh, yeah. Well, one thing I will say is I've gotten more used to the cold. So 30-degree weather used to feel miserable.
So it's now t-shirt weather for you.
And now it's I can wear just a long sleeve hoodie or not even just a hoodie, a long sleeve shirt and a pair of joggers in 30-degree weather, and I'll be okay.
Yeah, you can do that also if you're bench pressing a truck. So let's get into that. Let's talk about a lot of people when they start listening to this podcast. I'm going to the way back files with some alums that have done some incredible things. You're one of those incredible alums who have gone and had a love for strength training. You've played college football, and now you're doing this at another high level with strength training with a college football program. We'll get into all that in this podcast. But where did your love for strength training come into? Because I remember seeing you as a senior, and you're like a workout warrior, and I was like, this guy is on another level. Where did that love for strength conditioning come through?
So I started working out when I was 10. My dad wanted me to start getting into strength and conditioning training just to keep me healthy for the sport. Kind of give me a little bit of an edge, but more so to keep me from getting injured. More of an injury reduction kind of deal. And at first I hated it. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to just stay inside or go outside and play basketball. Throw the football around, do whatever, something that wasn't uncomfortable. But strength and conditioning was extremely uncomfortable, and I couldn't. I would do everything I could to get out of it.
Yeah.
And eventually, I got to where I was pretty competitive at it. I did CrossFit for I think 6 years, and I got competitive in it the last 2 to 3 years I was in it, and then I was training for the CrossFit Games in my age group, which is the 14 to 15 age group. And I at my best, I was 5 spots out from making the game. So top 15 in the world in the CrossFit Games in my age group.
Wow. So let's talk about at that age group, 14, 15 years old. What a lot of people are going to want to know, like, what was your bench? What was your squat? What was your power clean? Like, what were those numbers in relation? Like, that's a 14 and 15-year-old.
At 15, I could clean and jerk 225. I think my bench press was like 175. My bench press is not that great. It was pretty low, I feel like, for a
175 is not low for a 14-year-old.
okay. Yeah. Compared to what I'm used to at this point,
Right.
it feels
Right.
pretty low, but I don't think it actually is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think my back squat was like 315.
Wow.
Maybe no, I had 315 when I was in 8th grade. I think it was when I actually was at my prime. I think it was 325.
That's incredible. That's incredible. All right. So talk about CrossFit Games. You get in like the top 5 spots. How'd that go?
Okay, so I had to be top 10 to go. So when I got to, there was one point where I think I was top 12. And so I was like, this is attainable. Like, I can actually make this at one point. And so when you go to the CrossFit Games, you actually end up traveling to Carson, California, and the tennis center. And that's where everything is done. It's where you compete. You do all this stuff that all the actual CrossFit Games athletes do. They give you all the gear, everything. You can end up getting endorsements. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
But there was always one workout that just killed me. Like it killed my chances. There was, I think, the one that really killed me, like kind of haunts me a little bit, is 16.3. It was a 13-minute AMRAP, I think, of 3 bar muscle ups and I think 10 power snatches. I think it was like 75 pounds. It was pretty light. But I think I came in like 53rd in that workout overall. And that's when everything kind of fell apart. I dropped down to like top 25. And that was when I was like, I gotta stretch and claw my way back to actually get into the top 10. Ended up getting, back into the top 20, top 15.
This is still 14, 15 years old.
Yeah, this is still 14, 15.
Wow.
I think I was 15 at this point.
Wow.
And then, of course, once high school sports started, it was over with.
You got to kind of hang that up.
Got to hang that up and go on to the high school stuff.
So let's talk about high school. Let's 2018. You come to MRA.
Yeah, so I come to MRA starting the summer.
Yeah.
First workout, actually, I was told that workout started at 8 o'clock a.m. I got there at 7:50, and everybody was already walking onto the field, and I was like, this is different. This is not what I'm used to.
Right.
Because everybody, like, y'all were telling us that we were supposed to be on the field by 7:50. I didn't know that. I got there on the field at probably like 7:58.
Yeah, early on time's late. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, oh boy, this is gonna be a long summer. But I figured it out early, thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think speaking of strength and conditioning, that was the year we had Paul Lacoste as our strength and conditioning coach. That was nuts. That's probably some of the hardest workouts I've ever done.
So that's funny you mentioned that. Philip was just on our last episode, and he talked about that.
Did he really?
Yeah. So I want to get. So that's from a quarterback's perspective. Let's get your perspective on those Paul Lacoste work. You're a CrossFit workout guy. Paul Lacoste comes in. What'd you think?
So it honestly, it wasn't too bad. A lot of the stuff we did was some of the stuff that carried over into college. It's actually kind of he knew what he was doing for a little bit there. And a lot of the circuit training was pretty good. Really good conditioning. I think we were the best conditioned team in the MAIS, no doubt. I think there was a really good philosophy behind what he did.
Right.
A lot of it was like mental toughness too. Which
doubt.
is great because he was like, I want that Jackson Prep running back's head on a stick.
I know. I was like, this guy is.
He meant business, dude. He was nuts.
He did.
But that was so much fun because we kind of suffered as a team. Everybody, it kind of built a lot of camaraderie where everybody was going through the same thing and everybody knew how hard it was, but everybody fought to be, the best they could be every single day on that, like in those summers. And there was it was so hot.
Yeah.
So hot. And I just remembered like there was one day, I think I was the only one to throw up that entire summer. The only one. And I remember the whole team was gathered around. They were cheering me on as I was throwing up on the track.
Yeah. I remember that. I think you bring up a great point about football season and the preseason, and coaches are going to listen to this, and some alums and other people across the country are going to listen to this podcast. But suffering as a team early, I think, is huge, and not the X's and O's part of football, right? It's more of like hey, let me suffer as a team early so I can know where the threshold is, right, for your teammates. Where do I need to pick this person up? Where do I need to back away and like let them have their space? Or where's this person I need to push? So that's a great point of suffering as a team. And, he did that. I mean, there were some crazy workouts. I mean, I felt for some of you guys some days. I was like, this is insane.
I still remember I don't remember what they called it. It was like we snaked across the field for like 100 yards. It may have been more than 100. But it was like every 5 yards we'd snake up, and then like the guy from the back would run up to the front.
Oh, the train.
The train. And then he would stop us like every 20 yards, and we would do some kind of like in place
calisthenics.
Yeah, calisthenics stuff. It was like it was just nuts. The whole, because it was just basically hold the line or get left behind. It was kind of like one of those things.
That is. And see, y'all talk about that I got my coffee and cardio. That's my cardio. Coffee and cardio. So fast forward, the fall happens.
Right.
Football season's here. Let's talk about a couple of games, and I think it's fun to relive those memories, especially from 2018.
Right.
We're about to be in 2025. You as a football player, I think, took the mentality of how you attack the weight room with everything that you did on the field, whether it was playing safety, whether it was playing receiver, whether it was playing running back, whether it was run down on kickoff, whatever that was. What developed that mindset?
So I've always been a guy who, my dad's kind of developed my mentality as time goes on. Kind of like it's playing everything like it's the last time you'll ever play. So, and a lot of that stems from the fact that when I was, before I came to MRA, I didn't play very much. I was, kind of JV. I was still a guy that figured that, everybody else was going to be better at some point. There's always somebody better than you. So the harder you play, the more you kind of bring yourself up to their level. Yeah. And if you're better than they are, the harder you play, the more you dominate the guy across from you. So that was my thing, where if you bring that mentality from the weight room where you're bringing intensity and intent into every single play, you're going to win. Right. At some point, that something is going to happen. As one of the coaches that I used to have said, if you stay in the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. So that was kind of mentality where like, so like if if it's not, breaking free for you yet, but you just keep giving everything you've got, at some point something is going to give. Yeah. And at that point there was also like, you kind of had to turn a switch on. Like you had to be angry every game. Yeah. And that was kind of the mentality that we kind of developed as a defense, I feel like, at MRA.
Oh, Danny's dogs.
Danny's dogs, man. That was. I mean, we were violent. But we loved every second of it. That was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. That both sides of the ball were clicking on all cylinders almost every game. Yeah. It was insane, actually.
Except for the last one, right?
Except for the last one, and we won't really talk about that too much. Because, as a matter of fact, I was talking to Bryce Ishii yesterday. And Bryce and and Ridge too. And we were both like, dude, we still think about it all the time. Mm-hmm. That was tough. And that's something that, we still think about all the time, that, we didn't finish. And that's just, it's just.
We talked about it last night on this last episode. So I want to gear this stuff towards you a little bit. That's fine. That's fine. It's a great pause.
Somebody.
Oh, now we're locked in.
Oh, no.
No, the door. I just have to yank it. I don't want to do that right now. We're good.
Okay.
It's probably a UPS truck.
Okay. All right, so now I want to gear this thing towards you a little bit. There was a specific game where you had to come from the defensive side of the ball and be the primary guy. We talked about in the pregame show, or the pre-show, that you knew exactly what I thought was really cool. You know the week, you knew why, all that stuff. So sports is in your brain all the time. So go back to Week 9 game when your number was called.
So this is actually one of probably the coolest game I think I've ever been a part of. And I've been a part of some really, really cool stuff. Because at that point, like I had never been a part of the rivalry before against Jackson Prep, but that one, like that meant something to all of us. And it kind of developed over the summer and kind of building up to the weeks at that point. But I had already kind of had like an inkling of like, all right, I know what this is. An idea of like who I was playing against and what was to come, how the rivalry was supposed to be played. And so I was already a little angry at that point because I'd watched so much film on Jackson Prep and I'd seen how dominant they were in the coming games up to that point. I watched film all the way back from 2016 leading up to that. I got in trouble for watching film and math and
I think a lot of guys did watching Huddle during school.
During school.
Especially during that week, knowing the magnitude of that game.
Right. And I just remember, so William Milam had gone down and the week of the St. Stanislaus game, I think that was week 5. Am I wrong? Maybe.
I'm going to go with it because you were quoting off stuff earlier. I was like, yep.
So we
sounds
played,
great.
So week 5, and then Josh Tucker goes off, I think he goes, so that was week 6. Week 7 was Park Lane.
Yep.
Josh Tucker goes off for like 200 yards. I think he had 4 touchdowns. He scored 28 points for us.
That was like his coming out party.
Yeah, we were like, all right, we got our guy. And then we played JA the next week. He's going off. I think he had like 140 yards in the first half.
Yeah, it was nuts.
And then broke his collarbone. And like, it was just one play. Just completely. Like, oh, no. What are we going to do?
You saw him come off the sideline. I mean, I remember it to this day. But it was just like you could see it hanging. You're like,
oh yeah.
That's
he
not
was
good.
severely concussed too. So we were like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
Bad. So we tried out. I mean, I remember we tried Landis Purnell out for a little bit too in practice. Because I think he played running back in like 9th grade ball, 8th grade ball.
8th and 9th grade ball,
Yeah.
and even like rec ball. He was a running back, wasn't
Yeah.
a receiver.
And I remember y'all found out that I played running back my freshman year of high school. And you're like, all right, let's try this guy out a little bit. And I seem to be okay at it, so y'all, all right, we'll go with him. He'll be our second guy. We kind of went with Ridge Futrell to start. Ridge Futrell, dude, he was a dog. He was a dog.
Yeah.
Nobody could stop him, man. He was big. He was fast. he could get it going.
I know.
But I remember the first play I went in at running back was sneaky.
Yeah, it sure was.
Dude, that single play is one of the best plays I think I've ever had.
Oh, it was.
I remember because nobody knew it was coming. I figured I was like, this is never gonna work. Like, it's like no way they don't see us like lining up on our sideline and then just send a center out to the hash and just snap
you the ball.
And then had Philip Short lead blocking, which was hilarious. Dude, he pulled the Tom Brady at the end of the play too. Because he just stood in front of the guy, and kept on running. I think that was like a 43-yard rush. I got down to the 6-yard line. I was so close.
You were so close.
I was so close. But I remember vividly. I don't know if I've told y'all this story. The very next play, we went kind of quick because we had the momentum going. They were on their heels. The next play, I was gassed. I was out of breath. I couldn't breathe. I was nauseous because I thought I was about to throw up. So I get the ball. And there's a hole to the right side of the line that you could fit a Mack truck through. I could have walked into the end zone, and I had no idea it was there. I ran straight forward, and I got blown up by the linebacker. And the next play, I'm like, we got out of the huddle because y'all did hand signals, so we didn't really have much of a huddle. But the next play, I remember getting into my stance and telling Philip, hey, call a timeout, Philip, I'm about to throw up, call a timeout, please. we call a timeout, I got my breath back, and we still didn't score. We could not get, the first 3 to 4 drives, we could not score.
Yeah.
That game was back and forth for a good, I think it was almost the entire first quarter. We didn't score.
Yeah.
We missed a field goal, we had a fumble in the end zone, it was nuts. And finally, we broke it open with a Philip Short, speed option.
Yeah.
Colts right.
Yeah, him running to the end zone of on the south end.
Yeah.
I remember that, sticking the ball out. God, man, you bring us some good memories. That was the first time that MRA beat Jackson Prep since 2011.
It was like a 7 or 8 year drought. It was because y'all would go to the state championship and played against them I watched every state championship. I built myself up on film with those state championships. So I was like, all right, this is.
We kind of felt like the Buffalo Bills, though, man.
Yeah, it was like
Boy,
we had
I love
all the
losing
chances.
Super Bowls.
Yeah,
We'd get there and we'd lose. We'd get there and we'd lose.
And so I just remember after that, when we finally broke it open, I was like, all right, it's time to roll.
Yeah.
Defensively, I remember everything opened up. It was perfect. I remember there was one play, I think it was, we were down on the north end zone. It was like on the 15 or 20 yard line. We had kind of pinned them a little bit. And we were playing cover 2, and Jake Lang was their quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Jake Lang drops back, and they throw like a curl, I think, to Spence Graves. And that was that moment. I had a hit on the sideline.
Oh, yeah.
I declated him.
Yeah, I remember that now.
And I screwed myself up. I thought I blew my knee out. I got up and I was like, "That's not good."
Uh-oh.
And then 2 plays later, I was fine. But it hurt really bad.
Can imagine. Well, I mean, you're playing both sides of the ball.
Right.
You haven't done that. I
Right.
mean, that's one of those things. Like you're like, man, like this is. I gotta
Yeah.
take my training from Paul Lacoste and kind of center it in here.
So then I remember when we finally started settling into a groove on offense, and y'all gave me I think it was Chiefs left. We were on our own 20-yard line, and I remember it opened up like the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Seabrook kicked one out to the left. I don't know if we had somebody pulling or not, but I remember the hole was so wide I could have walked through. It was so easy. And there was a linebacker standing to my left, and I just took a cut back to the right. And then I saw Nick Rowan pancake whoever he was on, and it was off to the races from there.
Guys, if y'all didn't know that Cody Swanson has a photographic memory. So if you need him to remember stuff, he can, even from 2018. That's very impressive. Impressive.
I wish I would have scored there too, but I got called up to, I think it was like a 42, 40, something like that. It was a 40-something yard gain.
Yeah.
Next play, Ridge comes in, gains another 20 yards, gets us down to like the 20-yard line, and then another read option to the left. And I think Seabrook crashed down. That left me wide open with the safety. I made a move. Safety falls over. I get upfield, make a cut, and then it was barbecue chicken from there.
That's it. You were my favorite number too.
Number 12?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Okay.
Yeah,
all
I was
right.
12 forever. I was 12 in high school and JUCO and at Delta State.
I
So
wanted to get 12 so
12,
bad.
yeah, 12 is like that's the luckiest number.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I wanted it in college too, but I never got there. Sean Preston had it the entire time.
Yeah. So let's fast forward. You bring up a great point. You go have an awesome high school career. First team All State. You're all those things, and you get a chance to play at Mississippi State.
Yeah. So I think first offer was just a random text from Mississippi Delta.
Yeah.
I got a text. I was like, "Who's this?" They're like, "Oh, this is Coach so and so from Mississippi Delta." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
like,
Please
right.
tell me that first."
Yeah. Please let me know who's sending me an offer before I say, "Oh, this is great." Yeah.
So fast forward, I got a couple JUCOs and D2s, and then I decide, and then y'all give me a good opportunity, and then I actually get Coach Moorhead's and Coach Luke's number from the Norsworthy family at Jackson Prep, because they were the guy housing Jerry and Ely. They all knew those coaches really well because they had been on OVs, yada yada, whatever. I get their number and I text both Joe Moorhead, Matt Luke. Moorhead responds within 2 minutes, tells me, "Hey, we'll get this film looked at. We'll figure out what we can do." Matt Luke never responds. So I'm like, all right, I've already kind of got an idea.
But you got the head coach.
Yeah, I got the
You
head
got
coach.
the head
Yeah, I
coach.
got the head coach. I got the head guy, So I got, I do whatever. So, that's State and Ole Miss down. I started getting calls from Southern Miss, and then Southern Miss turns me away. So I was like, all right, so, we got two options here. And then, of course, we got the actual scholarship offers from JUCOs and D2s.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, all right. So we got some good stuff going here. So start talking to Brad Peterson, who was, I think, their director of player personnel at that point.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And so I get a call from him. He's like, "What would you want to play?" Kind of give him an idea. Like, I'd probably want to play safety or slot receiver. And then I finally come down to the point, like, all right, I want to play safety. So that was kind of my thing. And then I get a call the night before signing day. I'm about to commit to Mississippi College. That was going to be where I was going to go.
I remember this.
I was in the shower, and Brad Peterson calls me, and I'm like, oh no. So I get out, I rush out, I dry off, I answer the phone. He's like, hey, recruiting's been long and hard this season, but we've got two spots left. If you want it, you got it. And I said, hey, I'm coming.
Yeah.
Like I'm committed. Like this is it. So
That's awesome.
So I post, I do everything. And then 2 weeks later, Ole Miss calls, and I'm like, it's too late. Like I'm going to state.
You kind of fit though. No slight on Ole Miss fans or anything, but you kind of, your work ethic, your mentality at that point, I think you fit
Right.
the brand of Mississippi State, of the blue collar.
Yeah, kind of hard-nosed defensive football.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember, so I get there in the summer, and I was not ineligible because of grades or anything like that. I was ineligible because I hadn't filled out my clearance forms for physical training. So I didn't. Well, I get there, and the director of player development's like, "You're not supposed to be here." But I was told I was supposed to be here in the summer.
Wait,
But it's funny. Like we're close now. It was kind of a moment where it was like kind of a walk-on moment where it's like, all right.
Like, am I really supposed to be here?
Like, okay, appreciate it. But I think he meant like I'm not supposed to get there until the fall.
Right.
But I was told by Brad Peterson, he was like, yeah, you can come in the summer. I was like, okay,
great.
So I'll show up. So that's when everything kind of happens. I get put in the dorm with all the guys. So I get close with them. We're all right next to each other. Yeah. Fast forward, summer training happens, and this is where strength and conditioning I kind of fell out of love with it for a little bit because it wasn't what I was used to. It was different. Like we didn't Olympic lift there, no snatches, no cleans, no nothing. It was like we didn't even deadlift. We squatted and then we benched and then we did a little bit of jumping and that was about it. And it was new to me. It was very, very different. I was not used to it at all.
So going from a place of like the CrossFit Olympic lifts and even at MRA, all the Olympic lifts,
Right.
even with Paul Lacoste and the stuff that we did, and now you go to a 4-year school and it kind of changes your whole mindset.
Yeah. I remember asking the head guy, I was like, so when do we start power cleaning? He's like, oh, we don't Olympic lift here. And I was like, oh man, like it kind of broke my heart for a little bit there because that was like my thing. So that was something I really, really loved to do.
From somebody who clean and jerk 225 as a 14-year-old, right? I mean, that's kind of one of those things.
Right. So then, fast forward, season goes on. It's the coolest experience. It was everything I thought it would be and more. It was the most, like the first time ever running out of that tunnel into the, maroon and white crowd, hearing cowbells for the first time was one of the most surreal things I think I've ever been a part of.
That's really cool.
And then that freshman year was so much fun. It was incredible. I know we only went 6 and 7, but like I got to experience a bowl game, a really good bowl game at that, because Nashville, Tennessee is a pretty cool place to go for a bowl game.
Absolutely.
You stay in the Gaylord Opryland Resort, and it's basically a city inside of a hotel, and it was awesome. And I got a little nickname there. It was Bulldog. So that was because
kind of fitting.
I was kind of hard nosed, so that was like my thing. And then I remember on scout team, Coach Moorhead gave me the nickname the Silent Assassin because I never said a word. I just did the work. And then that nickname really didn't stick very long.
Do you think that came like of just getting the job done from your dad training you and like helping you with your mindset that you said earlier that he's going to help me become a man,
right?
With
exactly
how to structure my mind. So it was like, I'm all about work. It's all about getting a job done. I'm not going to talk it. I'm going to walk it. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to take care of the business that helps the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll see here in a second, the shirt that I've got on, it actually kind of got epitomized into the, what, my boss now actually, it's like his kind of insignia, he's coined this kind of like phrase, actions over words. And that's always been something that, I was kind of like, it wasn't the actual way my dad described it. It was always, like kind of walk the walk, don't talk the talk kind of deal.
Yeah.
But that was like, it was epitomized into that single phrase when he got there, when we get to it, the end of my freshman year.
Yeah. Kind of be about it, don't talk about it.
Yeah, be about it, don't talk about it. Yeah. And that was kind of my thing where like scout team was, I knew I wasn't going to play very much because, you got a bunch of, big time guys in front of you. I'm just a freshman walking. I weighed 175 pounds. I got thrown around like nobody's business. I was a human tackling dummy. So I knew, I was like, I'm not going to play. If I do, it'll probably be on special teams. And even then, I've still got walk-ons ahead of me at that point.
Right.
So I was like, my dad said, like, hey, man, your game day is scout team every single Tuesday and Wednesday. Every single time, that's your game day. You make a point to make a play every single time you're in a scout period. And that was my thing.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
And it actually kind of helped me out a
Yeah,
lot.
that kind of goes back to it. So with your time at Mississippi State, is there like 2 or 3, or even just 1 or 2 instances you're like, it's happening? Like I can see myself starting to get on the field.
Yeah.
Whether it's special teams or whatever. When was that moment?
So this was my sophomore year, redshirt freshman year, in 2020, after Mike Leach had been hired. I know that like I had already made a name for myself, I guess, with the strength and conditioning staff, and then the new defensive staff started to take a liking to me in fall camp. And then because I started to actually get more reps, I wasn't just a guy that was on the team and sitting on the sidelines during team periods. I actually was in the team periods and being a part of them. I was doing well.
Right.
And then, of course, when people get COVID, you're the next guy up. So after that, I think it was LSU. It was actually the first game of the season in 2020. We go to LSU September 26th, go down there, and of course, they're the reigning national champions. So we're already like, all right, this is the stuff right here. You were playing in Death Valley. This is awesome. So we get down there. I'm in the walkthroughs. I'm listening. I'm getting all the middle reps in. And then the game starts. Whatever. Nobody had told me anything that I was going to be a part of it. I actually went down there as a scout team special teams player of the week. That was how I got to travel.
That's awesome.
That was the first game. And then I think we were up by about 10. If we scored, so I think we were driving and we ended up either punting or kicking a field goal. I don't really remember, but I do remember they had put the 2s out for on the defense, and we were still doing well. So I was like, all right, this is pretty good. And then my safeties coach comes over to me, and I'll remember this like for the rest of my life. He comes over to me, he goes, "Hey, get hot, you're up next." I'm like, what?
One of those moments of like,
it was one of those moments where I was like, this dude actually trusts me to get in the game and make a play. I was a third string safety at this point, and I knew all the positions, but I was like, this is a game against the reigning national champions.
yeah,
They had Keyshawn Booty. They had who else did they have? They had a lot of dogs. I think they had Trayvon Marshall.
they did. As an LSU fan, yes, I remember.
So like, I was like, okay, I'm about to have to guard these guys. They had Arik Gilbert. They still had Arik Gilbert at this point, who was, I think, the number 1 tight end out of the high school class for 2020. And I still remember at that point, I was like, I don't know if I can actually make a play here. Like this is it. Like we're in Death Valley, and I was scared out of my mind. But at that point, I was like, all right, I gotta do this. Like this is my moment. I gotta make something out of this. Well, they go down and score, and he's like, "You're good."
It's like,
So it's like,
we're gonna get you pumped up and hyped up, and never mind.
and never mind. Stay close. We'll keep you in our back pocket. I was like, all right, thanks, coach. Appreciate it.
So when was the first game that you went in?
So first game I went in was supposed to be Vanderbilt 2020. I was starting on punt return,
Nice.
and they didn't punt.
That's classic.
It's a classic. Like the team we're playing has nothing to lose, so they go for it on 4th down every single play. So it was like, all right, great, cool, this is awesome, And so they'd always be like, 3rd down, punt's hot or punt return's hot. So I get on the little pad that we had, and then they never punt.
Never mind,
Like,
go for it.
all right, turnover on downs. Cool, thanks guys. Well then, that was I think week 6. So then fast forward about a month and a half later, it's December 19th. We're playing against Missouri, who was ranked at the time. I think they were number 25. They were 5-4, or they were 5-4 or 5-5. I can't because we had 10 games that season. So they were I think they were 5-4.
So still during the COVID year.
This is still during COVID year. This is our last regular season game, I think, actually. Okay. And since it was, everything started late, everything ended late. So it was December 19th is when our last regular season game was. I had traveled every game up to this point. So I was like, at some point, I'm going to get in. There's no way. we end up going up like 35-0. I'm pretty sure. Like I was like, okay, well, we're doing pretty good against a ranked team for a team who hasn't won more than 2 games.
Right.
Well, we're up like 30 points. It's probably I think it's like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So they're like, hey, Swanson, you're up. Like I'm in. I'm like, yes,
Here we go again.
And this time I actually get in the game. So I'm running out
awesome.
there. So I'm like, whoa, this is different than, Thursday night practice in the stadium. This is the real deal. They got Connor Bazelak, who's now Bowling Green's quarterback.
Oh, wow. Still in the league.
Still playing.
20th year senior.
Yeah. So they have Connor Bazelak in, and I am like, this is awesome. I think my first coverage was just like a drop 8.
Yeah.
And then my next one was man. I was manned up on their tight end. I was like,
Okay, here we go.
I was like, here we go. This is it. I get into my stance, and then they get a sack easy. Like I was like, it wasn't even a coverage sack. It was like,
I was about to say,
like
you could claim coverage sack.
yeah,
Like,
I could claim coverage sack, but it was like 2 seconds. The O-line stood up and let the guy walk by. So it was like the longest yard where
Yeah, turn it. Like,
Paul
look
Cruz.
at the lookout block. Yeah, look out.
yeah, look out. But then another couple plays later, we get a 4th down stop or a 3rd down stop. They punt, and we get the ball back, and they put KJ Costello back in. And this is after he had thrown for 623 yards and like 6 touchdowns against LSU. Was like a Heisman candidate. We thought he was going to be like the guy.
Yeah.
Well, then we would lose to Arkansas, then lose to Kentucky, and then everything just starts to like roll. He gets a concussion against Bama along with our running back. And then he gets COVID. So he's out for like 6 weeks. We don't see him for forever. Well, he comes back, and then we put him in when we're up by 30 against Missouri, and we throw a screen, which bounces off our receiver's face mask, and it's caught for a pick. And Mike Leach is like, oh, we can't put that guy in. He's cursed. So they took him out. Will goes back in, whatever. So then this next defensive drive, they're coming back down the field. And, I'm like, all right. Well, I get my first tackle on this drive.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I get my first collegiate tackle. Everything feels awesome. I'm on I'm on cloud 9. Everything feels great. Well, 2 plays later, they're down on the 30-yard line, I think. And Connor Bazelak rolls out to his right, and he's under deep pressure. So he just throws one up. And I'm playing deep middle of the field, deep post in the field, and the ball's coming like right to me. I'm like, oh,
it's a beach ball.
Yeah,
it's a beach ball.
I'm like, there's no way it's this easy. No way. And I look up, and I'm like, eyes are about this big.
Yeah.
And I've got a pretty good vertical. I'm pretty decent athlete. And I jump high as I could. I'm standing still. Jump as high as I could. I think I'm standing on the goal line, and the ball goes
right
over my hands into the tight end's hands for a touchdown. And I remember Jet Johnson, who's still actually a coach with me up at UConn and a really good buddy of mine. I come down, and he goes, "You got to catch that, dude." And it's one of those moments that I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. Like, I should have definitely caught that.
Yeah, maybe I should have done one more squat or something.
I should have backed up. That's what my it should have been. I should have played center field and backed up another step or 2.
There you go.
It's on live TV. You can go find it on YouTube right now.
Oh, nice. If you want to go see Cody Swanson not make a play, go do that. So let's transition. So you had an awesome career at Mississippi State,
Right.
and you kind of find yourself back in love with strength conditioning to what you're doing now at UConn.
Right.
And I think one of the cool things is you talked about how you got to this point just a little bit, and I'll let you elaborate on it. But it was unpaid internships.
Right.
Of like, I'm paying my dues to doing something and knowing that I want to be at the collegiate level. I want to possibly maybe do this in the NFL with an NFL team. Like, there's a career mindset to what you're doing and has shaped you since you were a 14, 15-year-old of the work ethic, what your dad has put, And I think another thing we haven't even talked about is you being the oldest boy, kind of setting the tone of what the Swanson legacy is going to be, right? You have your dad, but then you have you, and then you have Hatch, and you have Gunner. But you also look at where you started, and I think I think it's a lot of second chances. Like, hey, I got a second chance at this. I got a second, and
Right.
you're making the most of those chances. So, talk about just for a little bit the unpaid internships in your 4 months at Ole Miss to what you're doing now.
So basically, to preface this, so when Joe Moorhead got fired from Mississippi State, they brought in, of course, Mike Leach, which was incredible. And they brought in a guy who had been his strength and conditioning coach. He'd been with Mike Leach since 2014. He was the assistant head guy up until 2018 when he actually got the head job at Elon. Went all the way to Elon, came back to Washington State a week later because Coach Leach gave him the head job. He gave him the job and, whatever. Stays with him all the way, comes down to Mississippi State, and he gets to us. And I loved it. Every single set. I still remember my first workout. I will say this. First workout almost killed me. It was 21 degrees outside. It was raining. The ground was frozen. My hands didn't function anymore. And I froze to death just about. It wasn't the fact that it was that hard. I just almost froze. But I do remember, like, we have a lot of moments where everything kind of like came to a head where that's when it was hard, but it was like, this is good for us.
Yeah.
And that's when I fell in love. I fell back in love with. We did Olympic lifts. We did a lot of heavy Olympic lifts, and it was really good. Everything felt like it was working, and it really translated over onto the football field.
Yeah.
I started gaining weight. I had trouble gaining weight, and then I finally got to build muscle. I got up to 193 pounds at the end of my freshman year, which I didn't think was possible. I didn't think I was going to be able to gain any actual
Right.
weight. And I kept the weight. It wasn't like I lost it all.
Right.
Because even during COVID, like, you figured, like, all right, you're not going to be working out that much. But the program that he gave us to do over, COVID actually worked. And it wasn't supposed to be something that was super crazy. It was just something to keep us moving and keep us in shape.
Right.
But it worked. It was something that really helped me out. And Coach Brown does an incredible job. Building a culture. And that's something that I really started to fall in love with. And so I got really good in with him because of my work ethic and how I operated, with the team actually working out. So then I asked him, I was like, hey, would I be able to do an unpaid internship with y'all in the summer of 2022? So yeah, absolutely. Went in there, knowing that I was going to have to work my tail off in order to really make a name for myself. And then when I started doing everything I needed to be doing. I actually helped coach the incoming freshman in the summer that year also. So I was with Chad Traver, who's now the assistant head at Wyoming.
Oh, wow.
And that was, I got really close with him also during that. So during that internship, I actually ended up earning Iron Dog while also being an intern for strength and conditioning. So I was known as one of the top 22 guys in the weight room and during the conditioning stuff, while also being an intern. So that really made a name for me with Coach Brown and Coach Traver and his staff. Fast forward to 2023, Zach Arnett, gets relieved of his duties, and then they bring in Jeff Levy, and of course Levy wants to bring in his own guy, so they relieve Coach Brown as well. So I was supposed to do an internship with him after we played against Ole Miss. So I was gonna start in the winter of 2024 at Mississippi State. Well, when Coach Brown got relieved, there was nothing for me to do, and then Jay Perry. Who is actually, I think, the sideline guy from Mississippi State. He asked me, like, I'm actually going to breakfast at the Templeton cafeteria, and I'll run into him, and he's like, hey, what are you going to do after this, like, when you're done playing? I said, I was trying to do a strength and conditioning internship with Coach Brown, but I don't know if he's going to be here. And he said, let me give you a call to Nick Savage, who's one of my good buddies at Ole Miss. He's the head strength and conditioning coach there at Ole Miss. Yeah. And 10 minutes later, I get a call from Cody Scheck-Snyder, who was actually a punter for us my freshman year at Mississippi State, who is now a special teams analyst at Ole Miss. And he's, of course, close with Nick Savage or Coach Savage and Coach Ackenberger, Zach Ackenberger, who were his coaches, I think, when he was a young guy at Mississippi State. So they were at Mississippi State first.
Oh, wow.
Coach Savage is actually the youngest SEC head strength and conditioning coach ever at 25 years old.
Jeez.
And now he's probably in his 30s now. But yeah, they're incredible coaches. They do a really good job. We got a lot of respect for them. But they brought me on. I got a call from both of them at the end of December. They're like, hey, well, you'll be here in January 8th is when you'll need to be here. And then I started my internship, and that was one of the best things I've ever done.
So how was that? You go from state
to Ole Miss.
to Ole Miss.
Yes, that was nuts. Matter of fact,
I remember talking to Gunner and be like, how's your brother like this?
it was definitely a culture shift in a way, because it's just Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Yeah. It's just different.
Well, here's what's funny to me is who was the head coach at Ole Miss at this time?
Lane Kiffin.
Oh, it was Kiffin. All right. I thought that'd been funny if it was Tom Luke. And, like, here's a guy that.
So Tom Luke is actually, I think, their director of football operations, and I've met him because of that.
What I think is really cool though is you had these two options out of high school,
right?
State, Ole Miss. You go play at State, and now you're at Ole Miss as a strength and conditioning guy. So let's talk about those 4 months, and then how those 4 months just kind of happened, and then what you're doing now.
Yeah, so it was quick, but the days were so long. It went by so fast, but the days. So it was a complete shock to me. They were like, "Yeah, we need you here by 4," and I was like, "The workouts don't start till 7."
Yeah,
I was like, "Okay, this is different. I think this is how strength and conditioning actually is outside of what I'm used to." It's like, okay, so well, the reason why they want to be there so early because they wanted us to work out before the lifts. So we would do the actual lifts that those guys, that the players were doing beforehand. So we did everything that the players did before they did it. So we kind of had an idea of what they were doing and got a feel for, why we were doing it. So it was really cool. It was really cool. They do a really great job of teaching you like why we do things, what we're doing, basically just the why behind everything. Yeah. And so we do like an intensive like internship process. Like it was like a classroom. So they come down, Coach Ackenberger would always come down. He had this big binder that was about like that thick, and it had readings. It had all kinds of articles from strength and conditioning coaches that have done a ton of research, and it helps us understand why we're doing what we're doing. And the profession is still really, really young. I think it's just over 50 years old, because the first ever collegiate strength and conditioning coach was in the 1960s at Nebraska, because they used to believe that lifting made you muscle bound and slow. And then when they hired that guy in Nebraska went to beat Oklahoma 41-0. And they're like, okay, there's something going on here. So then coaches started getting hired to do this at the collegiate level. And that's basically what it's become today. And now it's extremely scientific based. There is hundreds of thousands of hours of research done on these guys. And it's awesome.
It's even trickling down to high school.
Oh, now it's gotten down to high school, because now this wasn't when I was in high school, but now with Coach Adams, y'all are using the catapult systems. It's called Titan for y'all, right? But we use catapult in college, and that's the same thing. Y'all are measuring distance running games, but yardages. You're using top end speeds, deceleration. Vectors. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And now that I'm actually getting to be in it is incredible. But basically that internship was it was a ton of hard work, but it was fun. Yeah. Because you got to meet some really cool people. Of course, you didn't really get to meet Coach Kiffin because he was, kind of off and away. But of course he's the head guy. So, and you're just an intern. So it makes sense. But, you make some good connections with the strength coaches that you're working with, and then you make good connections with the interns that you're with. There's a guy that was from Madison that was there. His name is Stephen Bruckner. He was a former Marine. He's got a family now, and he came in to do strength and conditioning, and, he basically he does all of what's the word I'm looking for? He credits all of what he's learned, up to Ole Miss, rightfully so. Like awesome. They've done an incredible job.
So 4 months.
Yeah, 4 months.
Come and go.
Yeah.
Long hours.
Yeah.
Short time period. Now you're at UConn. Mm-hmm. And I scrolled your Instagram. I follow you. Like, it looks like you're having the time of your life.
Oh,
not even just in the weight room, but the bowl games, just being on the field. Like right. There's something to it to where you have taken the 14, 15-year-old boy that was competitive, mm-hmm. in CrossFit to MRA to Mississippi State to falling out of love, back in love,
Right.
to now you're at UConn, getting almost the best of both worlds, where you're
Right.
strength and conditioning, you're on the field, you
Right.
feel all the vibes, you get all the chills from not just the cold weather,
Oh, yeah.
but from being on a Power Four
Oh yeah.
football field.
Yeah, it's awesome, and I've gotten to experience stuff that I never got to experience outside of the SEC. And don't get me wrong, the SEC has some of the coolest environments I've ever been. I've been to Kyle Field. I've been to South Carolina. I've been to Death Valley, Athens, Sanford Stadium. I've been to Arkansas, Fayetteville. I've been to Bama.
Yeah.
I've been to Ole Miss. I've had the chance to play in some of the biggest and most rowdy stadiums in all of college football, and I still get to do it because of my job.
Yeah.
And that's one of the coolest things about this job is that you get to experience things you'd never get to experience outside of it.
Yeah, you get a headset. I mean, I saw you with a headset on.
I get to wear a headset because I played under our defensive coordinator at Mississippi State. So Matt Brock is our defensive coordinator at UConn.
Wow.
So I know all the hand signals. So what I do is I relay the play calls that he's giving to the press box. So I'm the only GA that's on the field. All of them are up in the box. So what I do is I tell them what he's calling so they can chart it down. And I've got my own chart that I'm also writing
How
down.
cool of a moment is that?
It's awesome.
Because I was wondering, I was like, all right, he's doing strength and conditioning, but he's got a tablet, he's got a pen, he's got a headset. Like, he is living his best life.
Oh, yeah.
At what, 23 years old?
24.
24 years old. And I'm like, man, like this is what you want. So
It's incredible.
talk about what those experiences would look like, what they look like, and actions over words, right?
Yeah,
Let's
of
use
course.
actions over words. If you could express in words your time at UConn, what's one of those, let's say 2024, right? We're midnight tonight.
Right.
We're New Year's Eve,
Right.
New Year's Day, 225. What was your greatest high from 2024
Greatest
at UConn?
high.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Your highest high of like, you know what? This is surreal that I'm doing this at a Power 4 level coming from, Madison, Mississippi, and here I am in Connecticut.
Honestly, I might have to say the bowl game. I mean, we played in Fenway Park at at the oldest MLB baseball stadium in the country, probably one of the most storied. And excuse me.
Yeah.
And we beat North Carolina. We were a football team, a basketball school, two basketball schools playing football in a baseball stadium.
Yeah.
And we packed it out. I think there were 27, maybe 28,000 people there.
Yeah.
It holds 32,000 people, so it was pretty full. And it was almost all UConn fans.
Yeah.
So it was one of the loudest games I've ever been to. And it was awesome. I mean, the Green Monster is right behind you.
Yeah.
I got to hit in the batting cages. I got to throw baseball on the field.
So that comes full circle for you being a
Yeah,
baseball
but I was a big
guy.
baseball guy in high school. So it's like everything's full circle in like this whole moment. And I'm getting to coach for Tyson Brown, Matt Brock, Jim Mora, who is the son of Jim Mora, who is the Colts head coach. And Coach Mora has also been an NFL head coach. So he's coached multiple All-Pros and Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
So
This is awesome.
It's incredible. It's one of the coolest things that I've ever gotten to experience.
What about this? So we talked about one of those moments in your journey, which it's a cool journey. And if you're still listening to this podcast, you need to tune into this last part, because I think a lot of times you use actions over words. So a lot of times there was setback where Ole Miss didn't text you back. You got this. You got the almost interception, right? Your first tackle. There's been a lot of success, but there's also been a lot of setback.
Right.
What's the biggest setback that puts you on a trajectory of like, that doesn't define me, and this is who I'm going to be? I know it's a deep question.
That's a good one though, because there's been a good bit in a way, because it's hard to pick one, because there's been playing JV as a junior in high school.
Yeah.
And that's on both sports. That's hard.
Yeah.
Really, really hard to do when you expect yourself to be, one of the better guys on the field and nobody else thinks you are.
Right.
So when you make that decision to change schools and go somewhere and then you actually start making plays and you're like, oh, I am good enough to do this.
Right. You feel valued.
You feel valued. And then, of course, we'll go back, Briarcrest, 2018. We're playing a team that's got who knows how many Division I commits or guys that are going to go Division I. Yeah. They've got a quarterback that's going to Richmond, a kicker going to Tennessee, an O-line and D-lineman going
down
to Tennessee.
Down 28-14 at halftime.
Down 28-14 at half. And we're like, we're not done yet. Mm-hmm. The culture behind that team was insane. There was never a single ounce of quit ever, no matter what. And I know, and that's why we went 12-0 in the regular season, or or 11-0 and then 12-0, and then went to state championship. That's why that culture carried over into the next couple of seasons, and we went 3 straight for state championships, right? Like that. I think being somebody who is JV in 2 sports. Being a junior in high school, that's like a defining moment for when you finally get your chance. You make that play because you've got nothing to lose.
I think it goes back to what your dad said, giving that chance and having somebody, whether it be at the high school level, college level, strength conditioning, whatever, play everything like it's your last time to play.
Right.
And when you have that mindset instilled in you, you're going to go after it. No matter what.
Right.
I think that's why you're successful right now, is because you're like, I'm going to do everything like it's my last time. So whether it's relaying a call back up, whether it's making a tackle at Davis Wade or scoring a touchdown at Patriot Field, you were always one of those guys that you're playing every time, whether it's an at-bat, whether it's scoring a touchdown or whatever, you're going after that. So kudos to your dad for that. For instilling that in you, and they're proud. But you doing this at UConn. So what's the future look like?
So I've been extended for another year. So I've got another year at UConn.
That's awesome. If you want to send Cody some warm weather, we'll try to post his address of where he is at UConn, so you can post him some cold weather gear. He might need that for another year.
It's a good thing they actually do give us some cold weather gear. So
good.
we get some good stuff. But I'd say, so we got another year at UConn with, the best staff in the country. These guys are awesome and some of the best players in the country. Like, I've built a relationship with these guys that I'll never forget.
So what's the goal? What's the goal? After UConn, what's the goal?
So I want to be a head strength coach. Like, that's my thing. I want to be, the guy that can, instill a culture and be somebody who creates the program that gets everybody, to where they need to be for the games. That's like
college level, high school,
college.
Pro, college.
College is my thing. I just love college football. College football is all like NFL is awesome. I love NFL, but college football has always been like so close to me because that's what I grew up with is watching college football. Right. So that's where I want to be.
Awesome. Well, with your passion and how you attack everything that you do, whether it's a Saturday afternoon in Connecticut coaching a game, or whether it's a Tuesday mid-morning recording a podcast with me, you go all in on everything. So definitely you embody the mantra of action over words. And I'm grateful and thankful and blessed to have met you and know you and continue a friendship with you.
Yes, sir.
So is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up today?
I think I'm all good. Just keep doing what you're doing. I think this is great. And whoever's out there, just keep chasing it.
Yeah, keep chasing your dreams. I'll finish with this. If you had to give advice to somebody that maybe wants to go in this profession, what do you say to them?
Just keep going. It's going to get tough. There are going to be days where it's hard. There's going to be times where things aren't going to go your way. And that's with anything you do. But this profession, it's going to get tough because there are going to be long days. There are going to be days where you're up at 3 a.m. and you're going home at 5:30 p.m.
Yeah.
And that's going to be sometimes weeks at a time. But you just have to show up. Just keep going.
I love that. Just show up. A lot of times people don't want to show up and they want to take that day off. So that's great advice, just to show up. Once again, thank you, Cody, for joining us in the lounge. Such an amazing treat to know you and to coach you and still have a friendship with you, to talk about your time, not only at MRA, but at Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and now where you're at UConn and living your best life with doing strength conditioning and being able to coach on the field. But some key takeaways that I got from Cody's conversation is just like from his dad at an early age, instilling play everything like it's your last time to play. Play everything, whatever it is, play it. And that instills a value in you of never quitting and showing up, which is another thing that he talked about of when things get tough. A lot of times all you have to do is show up. And then one of the big takeaways of the setbacks that you have to understand why you do what you do. That's all in this podcast and much more. Thank you to Cody for joining us in the lounge, and thank you, Brown Bottling Group, for being the title sponsor of the OCR Lounge.